Edward Kelly made alchemy dangerous, not because he was simply linked to strange stories, not because he stood beside John Dee, and not only because people associated his name with the philosopher's stone. Edward Kelly becomes dangerous for a sharper reason. Around him, alchemy stops being a distant doctrine and becomes a material problem. A secret can be held in the hand, used before witnesses, desired by rulers, and still remain unexplained. Edward Kelly did not only possess a secret, he exposed a fracture inside alchemy itself. A man could hold the result of the work without mastering the work that produced it. Kelly is often remembered beside John Dee, and that pairing can hide the difference between them. Dee belongs to the world of calculation, geometry, astrology, chemistry, and intellectual structure. Kelly appears in a different position. He becomes the alchemical center of the story, the man around whom the grand secret gathers. And the phrase sounds simple at first, the grand secret. But in alchemy, a secret is not only information. It is not only a sentence you can write down. It is not only a hidden explanation. A real alchemical secret is operative. It does something. It changes a condition. It acts on matter. And this is where Edward Kelly becomes more interesting than a simple legend. The question is not only whether Kelly had access to the stone. The sharper question is whether he knew the operation behind it. At the center is the powder of projection. In alchemical language, projection is the moment where a prepared agent is applied to receptive matter under the right conditions. The structure is clear. Something acts, something receives. The powder acts, the mercury receives. The condition is preparation. The relation is projection. The effect is transmutation into gold. That is why the powder matters so much. It is not just a magical object. It is a concentrated agent, a small thing that carries an immense operation inside it. And in the stories around Kelly, the scale is almost the whole point. A tiny portion of powder is enough to transform mercury into pure gold. That image matters. A grain of active force. A body of receptive metal. Small in quantity, enormous in effect. This is exactly what makes the story powerful. A little agent, a receptive metal, a decisive operation, a visible result. But then comes the ambiguity. Possessing the powder is not the same as knowing how to make it. That distinction is everything. A man can hold a key without knowing how the lock was built. He can use a medicine without knowing how it was prepared. He can hold a powder without knowing how the work produced it. And in Kelly's case, the question becomes sharper. Was he an adept who mastered the work? Or was he the possessor of a finished force whose origin remained uncertain? That is why the story of the powder being found matters. If the powder was discovered rather than produced, then Kelly's status changes. He is no longer simply the master of the secret. He may be the bearer of the secret, the user of the secret, the man who can demonstrate its force without being able to generate it again. That is a very different kind of power, and a much more unstable one, because if you know how to produce the powder, the secret lives in your knowledge. If you only possess the powder, the secret lives in a finite substance. It can be lost. It can be stolen. It can run out. It can be demanded by kings. It can become evidence against you. And if it runs out, the danger changes form. The possessor must keep the reputation alive. More demonstrations. More gifts. More promises. More pressure from those who want the secret repeated. That is where alchemy becomes dangerous. Not in the vague sense of forbidden mystery. In a concrete sense. A substance that can produce gold is not only a spiritual wonder. It is economic power, political power, social danger. If people believe you can transmute metal, then every ring, every gift, every sudden wealth becomes suspicious. The stories around Kelly move exactly in that direction. Gold rings, lavish gifts, a piece of brass returned as gold, a reputation built not by doctrine, but by visible signs. This matters because alchemy is no longer hidden in the furnace. It begins to leave traces in the world. Objects, money, gifts, rumors, witnesses. A private operation becomes a public disturbance. And that disturbance attracts power. If a ruler hears that a man can turn imperfect metal into gold, the question is no longer only philosophical. It becomes practical. Can this be controlled? Can it be repeated? Can the prophet be claimed? Can the man be forced to reveal the secret? This is the darker edge of Edward Kelly's story. The philosopher's stone is often imagined as the final treasure of the alchemist. But in Kelly's case, it becomes a trap. Because a secret that cannot be explained becomes suspicious. A power that cannot be reproduced becomes fragile. A man who possesses wonders without clearly proving their origin becomes dangerous to others and dangerous to himself. This is why the difference between possession and mastery matters. In the alchemical tradition, the true adept is not only someone who has a substance. The true adept understands the work, the matter, the preparation, the purification, the timing, the condition, the relation between agent and receiver. The lapis philosopher is not just a thing to be owned. It is the end of an operation, a completed work condensed into power. So if someone holds the result without knowing the path, the whole meaning changes. He has the fruit without the tree, the effect without the cause, the projection without the generation, the gold without the full knowledge of the work. That is the ambiguity of Edward Kelly, and it is stronger than simply asking whether the stories are true or false. A flat reading asks, did he really make gold? A stronger reading asks, what kind of knowledge is being claimed here? Because the old alchemical imagination does not treat knowledge as information stored in the mind. Knowledge is proven by operation. You know fire by what it does. You know a medicine by how it acts. You know a powder of projection by whether it transforms the receiver placed before it. But if the operation works only while a mysterious supply remains, then the knowledge is incomplete. The force acts. The result appears. But the origin of the force stays hidden. That is why Edward Kelly is not only a figure of alchemical success, he is also a figure of alchemical uncertainty. He stands at the threshold between the secret transmitted and the secret understood, between the possession of power and the mastery of power, between proof and rumor, between wonder and danger. Through Kelly, the alchemical problem becomes sharper. Alchemy was never only about wanting gold. Gold was the visible proof. The deeper issue was the relation between matter, operation, and transformation. Base matter was not simply replaced by noble matter. It had to be worked upon, prepared, opened, corrected, brought into another condition. The powder of projection represents the final active force that completes that change. But if that force is merely possessed, not understood, then the alchemist becomes dependent on what he cannot remake. That is not mastery. It is temporary command over an unknown power. And temporary command is exactly what makes the story tense. Edward Kelly made alchemy dangerous because he exposed this fracture inside the idea of the grand secret. The secret may be in the hand, but not in the understanding. It may act, but remain unexplained. It may produce gold, but still leave the operator dependent on what he cannot remake. That is why his story still matters. Not as a simple legend of the philosopher's stone, but as a warning inside alchemical thought itself. To hold the power is one thing. To know the work is another. Edward Kelly made alchemy dangerous because he separated possession of the secret from mastery of the operation.